My name is Olivia, and I am 38 years old. I reside in a quaint little town known as Willow Creek, a peaceful place with lush green trees and charming small shops. I am a mother to two wonderful children, and my husband is Ethan, who is 43. We have been married for 15 years. When we first exchanged our vows, I was overcome with happiness. Ethan was the epitome of sweetness and gentleness. He would surprise me with bouquets of flowers and take over the kitchen on Sundays to cook dinner. He would gaze at me with loving eyes and whisper, "You are my everything." A smile would spread across my face and I would feel like the luckiest woman alive. I truly believed our happiness was eternal. We made our life in a cozy little house adjacent to the park, a home I cherished for its warmth and the abundance of natural light that filled every room. 2 years into our marriage, we welcomed our first child, a beautiful baby boy we named Liam. He grew into a quiet and kind-hearted boy with a fondness for books and watching birds. I chose to be a stay-at-home mother to raise him, while Ethan dedicated his days to his job at the bank. 2 years later, our family grew again with the arrival of our daughter, Ava. She is a melody in human form, constantly singing, her spirit overflowing with joy. My days were a whirlwind of activity with the children, cooking, cleaning, and teaching them their first numbers and words. Ethan was a diligent worker, often returning home late, but he never missed a chance to kiss the children goodnight. In those initial years, I felt a deep sense of contentment. I was perpetually tired, but it was a happy exhaustion. Life was hectic, but it was fulfilling. We shared family dinners, and on weekends we would escape to the lake for ice cream and to watch the ducks glide across the water. Ethan and I would walk hand in hand, and I was certain our love was an unbreakable bond. However, things began to change, slowly and subtly at first. Ethan started dedicating more and more of his time to work. "I have a mountain of tasks at the office," he would explain. He stopped joining us for dinner. The warm smiles he once reserved for me vanished, replaced by a look of exhaustion, irritation, or simply a quiet indifference. When I would ask him, "Is everything all right?" he would dismiss my concerns with a curt, "I'm fine, don't worry about it." Initially, I took his word for it. I reasoned that work must be incredibly stressful and that he just needed some space. But the situation only deteriorated. He began coming home late nearly every single night. The midday calls just to check in ceased. The way he looked at me changed. The love that once shone in his eyes was gone. I felt a profound sense of loss. I missed the man who would bring me flowers. I yearned for the comforting sound of his warm voice. It felt as if I were cohabiting with a ghost. He was physically present, but emotionally miles away. One day, while going through his coat pocket, my hand brushed against a piece of paper. It was a receipt from a hotel in a city a 2-hour drive away. The name on the bill wasn't Ethan's. It was for a room registered to a Mr. E. Thompson and a Miss Isabella. My heart leaped into my throat, and my hands began to tremble. I waited anxiously for him to return home. That evening, I confronted him with the receipt, my voice shaking as I asked, "Who is Isabella?" He met my gaze and replied, "She's merely a colleague. It was a business trip, nothing more." I didn't believe him for a second, but I simply said, "Okay." I didn't have the energy for a fight. I couldn't bear the thought of shattering my family. Liam was only 5 and Ava was 3. They were so young. They needed both of us. The weeks that followed were a blur. I put on a brave face, forcing smiles for the sake of the children, but as soon as they were asleep, the tears would flow. I would cry silently in the kitchen as I washed the dishes, my reflection in the window showing a stranger I didn't recognize. When I looked at Ethan, I saw a man I no longer knew. He stopped confiding in me about his whereabouts and would often turn off his phone. "I'm sick of all your questions," he'd snap. I fell silent. What was there left to say? A feeling of emptiness began to consume me. I would clean the house, but it no longer felt like a home. I would prepare meals, but the food was tasteless. I'd take the kids to school and exchange pleasantries with the other parents, but inside, I was falling apart. One afternoon, while at the local market, I ran into a familiar face from my past, a man named Caleb. We had attended the same school years ago. He greeted me with a warm smile. "Olivia, is that really you?" I managed to smile back. Yes, it's me. He had a kind demeanor. He asked, "How have you been?" I wanted to give the standard reply, "I'm fine," but something within me shattered. I looked at him, my voice barely a whisper. "I don't know." He didn't dismiss my feelings or try to change the subject. He looked me straight in the eyes and said, "If you ever need a friend to talk to, I'm here for you." I simply nodded, and as I walked away, his words lingered in my mind. That night, I found myself sitting by the window long after the children had fallen asleep. Ethan was, as usual, not home. I gazed up at the star-studded sky and felt incredibly small and insignificant. I whispered into the darkness, "What has become of my life?" My thoughts drifted to Caleb, to his compassionate eyes and his gentle voice. I wasn't seeking a romantic connection. I just yearned for someone to show they cared, for someone to simply listen. A few days later, our paths crossed again at a local cafe. I was alone, so when he waved me over, I joined him at his table. We engaged in simple conversation, nothing profound, the weather, our favorite books, the goings-on in our small town. But his words were like a warm blanket on a cold day. He asked about my children, and a genuine smile touched my lips. "They are my entire world," I told him. He looked at me with sincerity and said, "You are a strong woman. I can see that." Tears welled up in my eyes. It had been so long since anyone had said something like that to me. We began meeting once a week, sometimes at the park, other times at the cafe. Our interactions were innocent. No gifts, no promises, just conversation and kindness. I started to feel a flicker of my old self returning. I found myself laughing again. I started to notice the warmth of the sun on my skin and the sweet melody of the birds singing. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a woman I hadn't seen in years. However, one evening, Ethan came home unexpectedly early. He saw a message from Caleb on my phone, a simple, harmless message. "Hope you had a good day." Ethan's face contorted with rage. He yelled, "Who is this man? Are you cheating on me?" I looked at him, my voice steady. "I needed someone to talk to. You were never here." He was silent. He turned and walked away. That night, we had a long, overdue conversation. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Ethan truly looked at me. His eyes were bloodshot. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I had no idea you were in so much pain." I replied, "You never asked. You never even saw me." He sat down beside me and took my hand. "I still love you," he murmured. I wanted so desperately to believe him, to feel a spark of the love we once shared, but my heart remained quiet. It was weary and guarded, unable to trust so easily anymore. And that is how a significant chapter of my life transformed, not through a single dramatic event, but through a series of small hairline fractures that eventually grew into a chasm. I have no idea what the future holds, but I know with every fiber of my being that I crave peace. After that pivotal night, Ethan began to change. He started coming home from work earlier. He would offer to help with dinner, asking, "Would you like some tea?" These were small gestures, but I noticed every single one. I didn't say much, but I could see he was making an effort. He even started helping Liam with his homework and would listen intently as Ava sang her little songs. He smiled more often, not the carefree smile from our early years, but a softer, more tentative one. I was hesitant to trust it. I wanted to, but the wound in my heart was still fresh. One Sunday morning, he asked, "Would you like to go for a walk with me?" We hadn't taken a walk together in years. I agreed. We strolled along the path near the lake. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, and ducks swam gracefully in the water. People on bicycles laughed as they rode by. I watched them, feeling as if I were peering into a different world. Ethan broke the silence. "I miss this. I miss us." I looked at him, at a loss for words. I simply nodded. He reached for my hand slowly, and I didn't pull away, but it felt foreign. His hand was warm, but my heart remained cold. I was wrong, he admitted, his voice filled with regret. I let my job consume me. I didn't see that you were all alone. I whispered, yes. We walked the rest of the way in a comfortable silence. That evening he cooked dinner. Ava was ecstatic. "Daddy's cooking," she exclaimed. We all ate together. Liam told a joke, and for the first time in a long time, we all laughed together. It felt wonderful. For a fleeting moment, it was like a scene from our past, a warm, inviting dinner table, happy children, and genuine smiles. But later, as I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, I asked my reflection, do I still love him? The answer was a deafening silence. One day, Ava presented me with a drawing she had made. It was a picture of our family, me, Ethan, Liam, and her, all holding hands. She beamed with pride. "We are a happy family," she declared. I embraced her tightly and kissed her cheek, desperate to hide the tears that threatened to fall. Later, I asked Liam, "Do you think your father and I are happy?" He seemed taken aback by the question. "I don't know," he said thoughtfully. "You're always polite to each other, but sometimes you both look sad." He was only 10, but his perception was astute. That night I cried again, muffling my sobs so no one would hear. A few days later, I ran into Caleb again. I hadn't seen him since Ethan had discovered our messages. It wasn't a planned encounter, it just happened. I was at the grocery store, and he was there with his son. He offered a friendly smile and a simple hi. I replied, hello. We chatted for a few minutes. He didn't pry or ask any intrusive questions. He just said, "I hope you're doing okay." I nodded. "Thank you. I'm trying." He looked at me with a gentle expression and said, "You're strong, Olivia. Never forget that." Then we parted ways. That evening, I told Ethan that I had seen Caleb. I was determined to have no more secrets between us. He didn't get angry. He only asked, "Do you still think about him?" I answered honestly, "No, but I do think about how he made me feel." Ethan looked down, then met my eyes and said, "I want to make you feel that way too." For the first time, I believed he was sincere. He started taking on more responsibilities at home. He helped Ava practice her songs and fix the broken cabinet door in the kitchen. He would ask me about my day. Sometimes he would bring home small, thoughtful gifts. A book he thought I might enjoy, a single flower, or a new mug for my tea. Nothing extravagant, but it showed he was thinking of me. He would say, "You don't have to thank me. You deserve to be cherished." I wanted to smile, and sometimes I did, but my heart was still slow to thaw. One night I fell seriously ill. I had a high fever and a sharp pain in my chest. Ethan rushed me to the hospital without a second thought. He stayed by my side the entire night, holding my hand. He didn't sleep a wink. He just sat there, his voice cracking as he said, "Please don't leave me." Tears streamed down his face. "I still love you," he whispered. I closed my eyes, and his words transported me back in time to when we were young and life was so much simpler. By morning, I was feeling much better. The doctor diagnosed it as a chest infection, nothing life-threatening. But something inside me had shifted. I had seen genuine fear in Ethan's eyes, and I had also seen love. A love that was perhaps broken and scarred, but a love that was still present. When we returned home, he insisted I rest while he made me soup. He sat with me in our bedroom and read to me. Ava came in and gave me a gentle hug, and Liam brought me a glass of water. I felt a sense of being cared for that had been missing for a long time. Later that week, I took a walk by myself. I reflected on my life, on the years that had passed, on the joyful moments and the painful ones, on Caleb, on Ethan, and on my children. I sat on a bench near the river and watched the leaves dance in the wind. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and asked myself, can I forgive? Can I truly heal? I didn't have a definitive answer, but I knew with certainty that I wanted to find peace. That night, I had another heart-to-heart with Ethan. I said, "We need to be completely honest with each other." He nodded in agreement. "Yes, we do." I asked him, "Do you genuinely want to save this marriage, or are you just afraid of losing what we have?" He looked at me with unwavering conviction and said, "I want you, Olivia, not just the idea of us. I want to make things right." I then asked, "Can you truly forget about the other woman? Can you give me the care and attention I need?" He replied, "I will try." I shook my head. "Trying isn't enough. I need you to be all in." He looked deep into my eyes. "Then I will be, I promise." And from that day forward, things began to change. We didn't magically become the perfect couple overnight, but we started walking side by side again. We had small talks about the mundane things in life, the weather, school, and our shared past. He started asking me about the books I was reading. He said, "Tell me about your dreams." It had been years since anyone had asked me that. One evening, he surprised me with a dinner for two by the river. He had packed a blanket, sandwiches, and a flask of hot tea. We sat under the vast, starry sky. He said, "Thank you for not leaving. Thank you for giving me a second chance." I looked at him. He wasn't the same man I had married, and I was no longer the same woman. But perhaps, just perhaps, we could build something new, not on the ashes of our past, but on the foundation of our present. As the weeks went by, life at home settled into a new rhythm. It was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. Ethan continued to be more present and helpful. He washed the dishes, folded the laundry, and walked Ava to school. These were small acts, but they spoke volumes to me. He no longer worked late, choosing to spend his evenings with his family. Sometimes we would talk for hours, other times we would sit in a comfortable silence. But I still had my moments of doubt. My heart was not yet fully healed. Sometimes when I looked at him, the painful memories would resurface. The hotel receipt, the countless nights I cried myself to sleep, the way he used to walk past me as if I were invisible. But then I would also remember the hospital, the feeling of his hand in mine, and his desperate plea, "Please don't leave me." Forgiveness was a difficult journey. I wanted to forget, but the memories were etched in my mind. I could forgive, but I couldn't erase the past. One day, I stood in front of the mirror and really looked at myself. My face showed signs of weariness, but it also radiated a newfound strength. I said to myself, "Olivia, you're not perfect, but you're trying. You're doing the best you can." I realized that I wanted peace, not just for my family, but for myself. That week, I wrote a letter to myself, a private declaration of self-love. It read, "Dear Olivia, you are strong. You are kind. You are important. You have endured immense pain and have refused to give up. You have shed tears, but you have continued to move forward. You have always craved love, and you still do. Never be ashamed of that. Love yourself first, and then you will be able to love others. You deserve to be happy. Don't you ever forget that." I folded the letter and tucked it away in my drawer. Now, whenever I feel a wave of sadness, I take it out. Some days are better than others. There are days when I smile without a second thought, and there are days when I feel utterly exhausted. But I've come to accept that that's okay. Life is not a fairy tale. I also started carving out time for myself. I began taking long, solitary walks in the morning. I would visit the library and lose myself in the pages of a good book. I would listen to soothing music and savor a cup of tea in complete silence. One day, I bought a notebook and started journaling my thoughts every night. I didn't hold back. I wrote my truth. Some entries read, "I am still hurting." Others said, "Today, I felt a moment of pure joy." I allowed myself to feel every emotion without judgment. Ava once asked me, "Mom, why do you write in your book every night?" I smiled and explained, "Because it helps me feel better." She nodded thoughtfully and said, "Maybe I should do that too." Liam also began to open up more. He started talking to Ethan more freely, and they would spend their weekends playing games together. I would watch them, a sense of gratitude washing over me. I knew our family had been broken, but I also knew that it had the capacity to heal, to become something new and perhaps even stronger. One evening, Ethan presented me with a small box. Inside was a necklace with a simple, elegant heart pendant. He said, "This isn't an apology, it's a thank you for not giving up on me." I held the necklace in my hand and replied, "And thank you for learning to see me again." He gently fastened it around my neck. That night, we all snuggled on the sofa and watched an old movie. Ava sang along to the songs, and Liam laughed at all the funny parts. I looked at my family, and I felt a small, warm glow inside me. It wasn't a raging fire, just a soft, steady light. But it was enough. Sometimes my thoughts still drift to Caleb. I don't miss him in a romantic sense, but I miss the feeling of being seen that he gave me. But I know that chapter of my life is closed. He was a beacon of kindness during a time when I felt lost, and for that, I will always be grateful. But now I am finding that kindness within my own life again, slowly but surely. Ethan is not perfect, and neither am I, but we are both committed to trying. One Saturday morning, we cleaned the house together. Ava put on some music, and we all sang along. I caught Ethan smiling at me, a smile that was not tinged with guilt, but filled with genuine care. Later, as we were having tea in the garden, he said, "I know I hurt you deeply. I'm not asking you to forget. I'm only asking for the chance to build something new with you," I replied, "one day at a time." He nodded. "That's enough for me." And it was. I no longer dream of a perfect fairy tale life. I don't wait for grand gestures or eloquent declarations of love. Instead, I cherish the small, precious moments. A quiet morning, a warm cup of tea, the sound of my children's laughter, a peaceful walk by the river. I have learned that love is not just a feeling, it is an action. Love is care. Love is time. Love is listening. Love is respect. And I have also learned this: I am strong. I can survive heartache. I can find light in the darkness. I can learn to trust myself again. My heart is still healing, but it is no longer broken. I take life one day at a time. I make a conscious effort to smile, to rest, and to be kind to others, and most importantly, to myself. If you are reading this and you feel lost or tired, please know this: you are not alone. You are strong and you are worthy of love. Start with yourself. Take one small step. Find one quiet moment and live one day at a time. And maybe, just maybe, you will find your light again.